Both of the buildings are obviously very old, and I was immediately struck by the amount of history that would have occurred at these locations. All the trials, the court cases, hangings, sentencings. It's a lot of negative energy for one location. It's thought that ghosts are comprised of energy, and of course, in order to manifest, they need to take it out of their surroundings. It seems like these locations would be a good place for that kind of activity.
Welcome back to Atlantic Filmmakers, continuing our conversation with Paul Kimball. And Paul, just before the break, you were talking about some of the experiences you had during ghost cases and some of the incidents that happened. Without spoiling anything, did you find anything that kind of really freaked you out?
Oh yeah, every episode. Usually Holly, but it was there were a couple of episodes. Most of the time, you'd go through an episode and you go, those are interesting stories. That's an interesting building. I have a history background, so some of the buildings were just interesting in and of themselves. But nothing much happened. But there were a couple of places. There was one, the first episode I think that we're going to air actually on Eastlink, the old jail and courthouse in St. Andrews, New Brunswick. There's a guy that was hanged there in 1942. He's the last guy hanged in Charlotte County. He's an RAF sergeant who had been convicted of brutally murdering a local girl during the war. So Holly and I actually sat, because this is what we do. We'll talk to the witnesses, then we'll go in and we'll sort of have what we call spook hour. We'll sit down in a place that's supposed to be haunted, see if something happens. So they locked us in, like in this jail cell, which was not supposed to happen for those people that locked us in. And I'm coming for you. And so we're sitting there. It's freezing cold, and it's dark, and all of these, I mean, it's really spooky anyway. And this, what a paranormal investigator would look for is some sort of corroborative evidence. So if you are over here with UFOs, for instance, if you're over here and I'm over here, you see it, I see it, we don't know each other at the same time, that's an interesting case because you have two people backing each other up. Right. So with the ghost thing, same thing is true. So I'm sitting here, Holly's sitting here, and we have our EMF meter, electromagnetic field detector, over here, which some people say may or may not, they kind of call it a ghost detector, but it measures variations in the electromagnetic fields. So here we are, boom, 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 and Holly, and you can talk to Holly about this, Holly sees something. I used to describe it as a person, but she describes it differently. I didn't see it. But some sort of shape, something comes in front of her at the exact same time as the camera records me doing this. You know, as if, like, I just, the only way I can describe it is I felt like cold, even colder than it was, wrapped around my throat, like, wow, like this. So there's two people experiencing the two different things at the same time, and then the EMF meter spiked while this was happening. Wow. So, I don't know, there's scientists all over the world right now who would go, well, we have logical explanations for that. They're the same kind of people who, did the Inquisition on Galileo or something. I don't know what the logical explanation for that is. Yes, you can scare yourself. Yes, you can freak yourself out. The mind will play tricks on you. But two people freaking themselves out at the same time, and then the EMF meter going in this place where this guy was hanged, that, even as a skeptic, I find that interesting.
Yeah, sometimes certain things you just can't ignore.
Yeah, and we left 5 minutes after that. It's like, shoot's over, good, we're out of here.
See you later, unlock the jail.
Holly's in there going, no, I want to stay longer. Yeah, good for you. I'm gone. Yeah.
So it's going to be great. As you say, it's going to be on Eastlink TV. Let's talk about some of the other things that you've got going on. What can you tell us about Eternal Kiss?
It's over budget, it's overdue, and it's, what's the other over? I don't know. It's going to be good. Holly's in it, actually. She has a small role in it, and I've seen the footage, obviously. We had fun shooting it in Shelburne. It's a great facility. I had a really good time. A lot of great actors, the crew was great. Everything about it was great. So for me, I spent most of my career doing documentaries and lifestyle kind of television, but drama is where I come from. Oh, I'm so drama. And so to actually be able to do a drama, is a nice step forward in my career. So I hope folks like it. I mean, it's a vampire story, too. And the same kind of thing about, people say, well, why would you do a vampire story? Everybody does vampires. And if you see a show that I won't name any names, True Blood, that, they basically turn vampires into minority ethnic groups. And there's vampires everywhere kind of thing, and they're put upon and all that. And I guess that's a metaphor. But for me, vampires are these solitary creatures. That's what speaks to us as human beings. They're alone. That's what makes them interesting. They're tragic. And if you can see a vampire at every bus stop, that's not tragic, except for the fact they're using the bus. They can't afford a car.
That's right.
That's tragic. But there's nothing tragic about that. There's nothing new or interesting to me about that. That's boring television. What you need to do, I think, and what we tried to do, was go back to the original vampire stories, Dracula, Nosferatu, and tell this love story of this, although we switched it, it's a female vampire and a guy, but basically the same story as Dracula. You know, this eternal love that just doesn't quite maybe match. And so people ask me, they said, oh, you did a vampire film? I said, no, I did a love story that has vampires in it.
Right.
But it's a love story at the end of the day, with some violence and vampires. So yeah, that was fun. And I executive produced a couple of, I don't have any films in the festival this year that I did, but I executive produced 2 films. One is a documentary called Colors of Exile by a friend of mine named Tarek Abu Amin, about a Palestinian artist who, his art basically describes and shows the exile of the Palestinian people from their homeland. And the other one is a film by Holly's brother, actually, Ben Stevens, called New Blood, which is about vampires. So I can't get away from vampires.
And it's an interesting comment, actually. You know, you said this year you don't actually have anything in the festival, but you're still in and around the festival. Why is it important, even if you don't have something in, to kind of still be a part of what's going on and to be in amongst everything that's going on at a great film festival like the Atlantic Film Festival?
Free drinks.
Good.
Basically comes down to, you know, you get the comp tickets. And, it's a business. And when we were here last year, we talked about that so many of my colleagues don't necessarily view it as a business. They view it as this great artistic endeavor, which it is. But it's also a business, which means you have to network and meet people. And so you're from Toronto and you've done this and this. Well, I'm from Halifax, I've done this and this. Maybe we can do this next year or the year after. And at the end of the day, film festivals, I think, have become more of a networking experience for folks, and sadly, less about seeing the films. But you see all these people walking around there now, and that's great, and that's why I go to parties and stuff. But we should never forget that it's a film festival. So amidst all the networking and boozing and schmoozing and all that sort of stuff, you know, I'll find some time to go see some films too.
Are there one or two from looking through the guide that you were really looking forward to, or do you just kind of pick and choose and go and decide after?
Colors of Exile and New Blood. No, those are... I stopped picking and choosing based solely on titles about 3 years ago. There was a film, the only way, you know, I don't mean to be politically correct, or incorrect, but the only way you could describe it, the filmmaker admitted it was gay porn. But I liked the synopsis. I didn't know, so I went. It was a late night screening based on the synopsis, The Raspberry Reich. It had Germans and Nazis, and it sounded like history and great. And I'm sitting there going, this is gay porn. And I was gonna leave, but the director sat right behind me. And I thought, well, that will be rude. So I sat through 100 minutes of things that I'd never seen before. It's just like, oh, well, that's interesting. And after that, I decided, you know what? I'm actually going to read the guide, and I'm going to scout around. I'm not just going to go based on a title. But I was going to go see the Trailer Park Boys last night. I missed it. So I'll go see it next week when it's out in the real theaters, regular run. But yeah, there's so many good filmmakers. You talk to so many of them. So many good filmmakers in the Maritimes that, you know, there's something there for everyone, whether it's a doc, a feature, a short. Everybody should go see something and see what we're spending all your tax dollars on, frankly, because tax dollars are what drives the industry. And we're spending your money making films, and we're making good films. So folks should come see them.
Join us after the break. I'm going to sit down and have a chat with Holly Stevens, and maybe she can tell us about some of her experiences on ghost cases. We'll be right back.